What is going on, my super sandwiches? Rhymestyle here, and today I want to give you a quick video of my top 5 reasons why I just did not have fun watching the Resurrection F arc for Dragon Ball Super, since I got a huge Twitter debate about it the other day, and I figured I'd put all my thoughts into one convenient video so you can see basically why I just didn't like that much. With that said, if you did like it or didn't like it as well, feel free to drop your comments below. But remember, this is just my opinion. If you cannot handle an opinion, then I strongly suggest that you leave now, because you know how it gets with these videos like this every now and then. People will freak out just because you don't like something that they do, or vice versa. In my case, I just did not have fun with the Resurrection F arc. Now, before I start, I do want to point out that the Battle of Gods arc in Super was absolutely amazing to me. I had fun from start to finish. I enjoyed it. The fight was awesome. The comedy was great. It felt great watching Dragon Ball all over again. And compared to the Battle of Gods movie, I gotta say that arc was a lot more fun to watch. However, with Resurrection F, it was a complete opposite, and, well, you'll find out my top 5 reasons why. Start with number 1. The first one being, it explains plot holes, or I guess extra stuff, very poorly. Now, the thing that was flawed with Resurrection F is the fact that they didn't explain anything. It was literally just an action movie like thrown out there just to give the action fans from the Dragon Ball Z side something to enjoy. Battle of Gods was very story-driven, whereas Resurrection F, the movie, was all about the action. And then when the movie came out, like I said, it was a lot of fun to watch. It was enjoyable. They brought back Frieza, one of my favorite characters of all time, and yet it was missing a lot of stuff. So when Resurrection F arc was remade in the anime format, I assumed they were going to fill in a lot of holes, which they sort of did, but not really. Everything they explained was just didn't really make much sense. It's like we knew that Goku and Vegeta achieved Super Saiyan Blue and Super Saiyan got Super Saiyan, whatever you want to call it, through training with Whis, and we sort of see that, but we don't really see that. Like, I would have loved to see, for example, seeing both Goku and Vegeta achieve for the first time. I'm not talking about that small key clash that we see in one of the episodes. I'm talking about actually transform and give us an epic, like, you know, music with it, whatever. That would have been fun to see for the first time, as opposed to how they did it in the series. Again, you can't really change that much when it comes out to it, but ultimately, what I was hoping that they would do with the Resurrection F arc compared to the movie was explain every little detail that was just left out in the movie. And even though they tried sometimes, for the most part, it just didn't feel that natural. It felt pushed, and that's why I wasn't really a big fan of it. Another example is the Frieza training, which a lot of us wanted to see in the Resurrection F arc, and they briefly showed it. Now, some people will argue, well, we saw the training, Rhymestyle, why are you like knocking that part? Let's be real here. The part they showed wasn't even really training. All they really showed us was a post-training session of Frieza telling Togoma to basically heal up and get ready for the next day so he can do it all over again. That's not training. That's literally just, hey, we'll give the fans something so at least they have something. I don't want something. I want a better explanation. I want to see at least a couple of shots. I mean, we briefly saw Goku and Vegeta train, which was awesome. They could have done the exact same thing with Frieza and Togoma, but they didn't for whatever reason. I mean, one of the reasons why I like Frieza's character is because he's so evil and sadistic. And just imagine what opportunity that they lost here by not being able to show Frieza torturing Togoma. Granted, it might have been kind of crazy to see on TV, but at the same time, it would have been awesome to see. That's part of Frieza's character. So it's just they executed really poorly on explaining a lot of plot holes that were left out of the movie. Number 2 is the awful comedy. Now, before I start, I don't necessarily mean that the comedy was completely awful from start to finish. It was funny here and there, but the thing that I remember the most about, you know, the Resurrection F arc movie is how funny it was, especially the parts of Jocko. Every time Jocko talked, it was hilarious, and yet every time he talked in the arc, it felt so, again, rushed. It was just the execution was there. It wasn't funny. I probably laughed maybe 20% of the time as opposed to how I laughed in the Resurrection F arc movie. And that thing stood out to me, from the start. The second they brought Jocko in, I was just like, okay, well, where is the same Jocko that we saw in the Resurrection F movie? I can literally sit down and watch the movie anytime, any day, and I will still laugh at certain parts of the movie. But when I watch this arc, and I watched the arc twice now, it's just not funny to me. I mean, some parts, yes. Again, I'm not knocking the entire Resurrection F arc in terms of comedy, but for the most part, it just was not as funny as the Resurrection F arc movie was, and that's my number 2 reason why the Resurrection F arc wasn't as fun to watch. Now, for my next part, I'm sure a lot of you guys will agree on this, but number 3 is the lack of focus in the Z Fighters. If you remember with the Resurrection F movie, there was a huge part of the Frieza soldiers fighting like Master Roshi, Tien, Krillin, Piccolo, Gohan, even Jocko. That was a lot of fun to watch. The choreography was on point. It felt very nostalgic seeing all the classic moves from, like, you know, the Kanzan, Special Beam Cannon, the Tri-Beam. It was just so enjoyable to watch. On top of it, even Jocko was just it was very fun to see how he defeats the soldiers, since he was a lot more on a different level as compared to those soldiers were. It was just fun to watch from start to finish. In fact, that's probably one of the most favorite parts in the Resurrection F movie. So when I saw that, I assumed in Dragon Ball Super, in the arc, they were actually going to expand on that and make it like 2 or 3 episodes and make it a lot more fun. And in the end, all they ended up giving us was a rushed fight that just wasn't that enjoyable. There was no point where I sat down and sitting there thinking like, oh, this is so awesome, this is great. And then all of a sudden, you know, they get through the parts real fast. They even take Gohan's part out where he fought the soldiers. They pretty much, in fact, it was Frieza's transformation that destroyed all the freaking Frieza soldiers. If you remember in the Resurrection F movie, it was Frieza that killed all the remaining soldiers on the field. And this time, they just basically gave that job to Frieza. And like I said, it just felt very, very rushed and just not fun. The big factor in me enjoying Dragon Ball content is the fact that it's fun. And if I'm not having fun, I don't care about the animation. Let me just say that right now. Animation has been up and down. Everybody knows about it. It's a topic that's been around this community for a long time. When it comes down to animation, that's the last thing that I really care about, because I know it's going to be inconsistent. If I'm not having fun, I'm not having fun. And that's ultimately the big factor here that decides to me if I'm enjoying an episode or not. And in Resurrection F, there was never really a big point where I enjoyed it, except for the point where we see Goku and Vegeta briefly train with Whis, and that's about it. But outside of that, it just, you know, they changed too much in a not fun way, and that's ultimately why I'm making this list in the first place. Moving on to number 2 on my list is they introduced extra content being stuff that's drastically different from the movie, with poor execution, without any real reason, without any meaning. And what I mean by that is, for example, they show Goten and Trunks show up. When Goten and Trunks showed up, I was so excited, like, oh snap, we get to see Gotenks fight, it's gonna be awesome. In fact, in the preview episode, they show Gotenks attack Tagoma, and I'm thinking, alright, the next episode is going to be a fight between Tagoma and Gotenks, that's gonna be fun to see. And what happens? Instead, Goten and Trunks show up, they defuse, and then they leave. Okay, cool, I get it, you know, I mean, Goten and Trunks had a terrible writing in the RF movie, just because they were like, oh yeah, they're just, you know, they're away, we just didn't tell them this is happening, which would never happen. Goten and Trunks would never just sit there on the side and not show up to a fight. So I get they were trying to kind of clean it up and be like, well, at least they showed up, but at the same time, they could have at least done more. Another example is Tagoma surviving. Tagoma survives, he's a badass, and when he first shows up and shows off how strong he's gotten, I assumed there was going to be like this big fight between the Z Warriors and Tagoma. And that would have been fun to see. Like, think about that. While Frieza and Goku and Vegeta are fighting, on the other side we have Tagoma fighting off against the Z Fighters. How much fun would that have been as compared to how they ended the Tagoma saga in the RF story? It just didn't feel that great at all. On top of that, they introduced Captain Ginyu for absolutely no reason. Oh yeah, here's Captain Ginyu, he just became even stronger. Oh wait, Vegeta killed him. Now the cool thing is, now we can say that Vegeta killed every single Ginyu member, but at the same time, it would just, there was no real reason to add that extra content in without, you know, without any reason. I mean, that's all I can really say. There was just no real reason to it. The execution just was not fun, and because of that, it's just, the difference between Resurrection F's arc compared to the movie is I would never suggest to people to watch the arc first. Now with Battle Gods, if you guys remember, I would suggest for you guys to watch the Super arc for Battle Gods as opposed to the movie. I mean, watch both, but if you had to compare between both of them, I enjoyed the Super Dragon Ball Z Battle Gods story more than the movie. Now with Resurrection F, completely opposite. All the extra content is just pointless. It doesn't really bring you that much joy. On top of that, it's just boring. Remember, my opinion, this is my opinion. Again, let me just state that O word out there. This is all my opinion, but it just wasn't that much fun to me, and basically, I just didn't have fun at all. And again, they just didn't do it right. The execution was really, really bad. And now finally, my number 1 reason why I didn't like the Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F arc as opposed to the movie in Dragon Ball Super is because the choreography was just not that great. Now, the choreography doesn't have to be on point all the time. There were certain parts throughout Dragon Ball Z where it would get intense and then it would just kind of slow down, like, oh, okay, what are they doing? But at no point in the Resurrection F arc did I say, wow, that was really incredible, that was awesome, that was fun. That choreography was just really, really bad. If you look back at all the fights between Goku and Frieza, for example, the meaningless ki blasts where they're just shooting ki blasts at each other, they look bad. Even when they get close and they start fighting with fists, it just was not fun to watch. Now remember, I'm using the F word again. The most exciting part, the most important part, I guess, to me enjoying a Dragon Ball episode is if I'm having fun or not. And I had no fun watching any of the fights here at all. It just wasn't that great. Now, especially when you compare it to how awesome the fights were in the actual movie between the Z Warriors and the Frieza soldiers, between Goku and Frieza, and then even when Vegeta steps in and fights Frieza. There was a lot of fun moments and the choreography was great, but what they gave us in Resurrection F is just basically, in the arc, was just like, why am I watching this? Why is this here? It just, like, that's the most important part in the Resurrection F arc. If you remember, Battle Gods, again, was more story-driven and all about development, whereas Resurrection F was all about fighting and action and choreography. And when you pull that in anime format in Dragon Ball Super and take away the choreography, then what is it? Like, what am I watching here? Now, before I end this, I do want to give props to the part where Vegeta fought Frieza, because that was easily the best moment in the entire arc. The explosion was great. They showed how everybody basically experienced the end of Earth. Like, that was so epic. But unfortunately, it's not enough to make me like this arc. As much as I love this final episode of Vegeta beating down Frieza, it still wasn't that great. But ultimately, it was still very enjoyable. I do want to not point that part out because I know people are going to mention it. The part was easily the best moment in the entire RF arc. So ultimately, that's what it is. Those are my 5 reasons why I just did not have fun watching the Resurrection F arc in Dragon Ball Super. Now again, every opinion differs based on the person you are. Again, a lot of you guys probably enjoyed Resurrection F more than any other saga. Like, you're entitled to your own opinion. So if you had fun, let me know what you liked the most about that saga, that arc. And if you didn't like anything, again, feel free to drop a comment below of what you didn't like as well. This is your chance to basically speak out and just state your opinion and your feedback based on what we saw with this arc. Now, I'm looking super forward to the Champa arc. I can't wait to get into new stuff. I feel like, you know, they're really going to step it up with this arc, and I'm excited to see what Toei is going to bring us with this next story in the Dragon Ball universe. So let's see what we get starting next week, or I guess in the future of the Dragon Ball Super episodes. But for now, Resurrection F gets a thumbs down from me, thumbs up for Battle of Gods, and hopefully it's going to be a thumbs up again when we get to the Champa arc. So let's see what happens. With that said, I hope you enjoyed my quick little rant video. If you did, leave a like rating below. Any feedback, comments, anything outside of the stuff that I already talked about, feel free to drop below. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Rhymestyle, and I will see all you awesome super sandwiches in the Champa arc.